unfortunately, a lot of businesses see marketing as an add-on, where I see marketing as the core of the business. Apple is not a company that makes technology. They're a marketing company who happens to sell technology. Nike doesn't make shoes. They're a marketing machine that happens to sell shoes. I can go on and on. Companies that are most successful are marketing companies that happen to sell products.
Hey everyone, Taylor Moon here, Director of Content over at ClearVoice, and we're on the ClearVoice mic, short for Marketers in Conversation. Today, we're passing the mic on over to Tim Parkin. He's the founder of the advisory board. We're going to see where the conversation takes us. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Taylor, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. We're almost there. We are just talking about the tail end of the week, but yes, I'm super excited to have you on. Super excited we're almost at the tail end.
Yes, the year is coming to a close. It's been a busy year, a lot of new things, a lot of changes in marketing, and excited to dive into
Oh
it.
yeah. I mean, a lot of new things, but also I feel like that's something we repeat almost every year. But it always feels new, right? There's
Yeah,
always
never
something.
static, always changing.
No.
Yes. That's what makes this job so exciting and interesting.
That's why we love it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I know a bit about you, being connected, follow with you on LinkedIn, but I'd love for you to give us just a quick intro, if you will, for the folks that might not know you or might not be as familiar with who you are.
Yeah. Shame on you if you don't know who I am. I'm kidding, of course. But
Tisk tisk.
I'm a magician turned marketer. So I started off as a kid studying magic, wanted to be a professional magician. I loved magic, but I realized that to be a magician, you would work nights and weekends, which is when all the birthdays and parties are. So I gave up that dream and
Mhm.
pursued a passion in programming and software development and built many really fascinating, awesome products over the years. But many of them failed because they had no customers. And after seeing that pattern, I realized I should probably figure out how to get these companies customers. And that was my entry into marketing. And so I'm a, homegrown marketer, learned it, as I went. And I realized in retrospect that marketing today, at least as we're talking about, is synonymous with technology. You can't do marketing without technology. And at the same
Yeah.
time, magic and marketing are the same. Magic is about capturing attention, creating emotion, telling a story, making people feel something. And that is marketing. So if you combine magic and technology, you get marketing. And so it's been a really wild ride, but a fun one.
I love that. And I love that you brought that up because that is something you always point out. I think you even made a post recently about kind of tell everyone where you started and how you
Yes.
ended up into marketing, right? And
Yes.
for the most part, we all have unique stories.
It's true.
So,
It's true. And it's fascinating because I think your background influences so much by your perspective of marketing and how you think. And we all have biases, of course, in life and in professional, but in marketing, there's so many things we take for granted or so many things we don't see just because of where we came from. And I think every background is good. My wife was in
yeah,
journalism. A lot of marketers come from journalism. I think that's great, finding the facts and telling the story. Some people come from a design perspective. I wish I can't design my way out of the box. It's
I
everyone has
feel
unique
that.
skills.
Guilty. I am a former journalist. So there you
Nice.
go. Former journalist, worked in media, music journalism for a majority of my life. And yeah, it does provide a unique perspective. That's for
I bet.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And skill sets, right? I think that's the cool thing about marketing in general is yes, you could go study it, but it's also a very transferable place, if you will,
Yes.
where knowledge, everything, because what is marketing? It's studying the market, right? And there's
Yeah.
so many things that come into it. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you can study marketing, but I think also you can live it, and we do live it. We are consumers, and we get so much marketing sent at us, whether we want it or not. My text messages are
True.
filled with, spam, but it's fascinating to be in a world where everybody experiences marketing, and if you're cognizant of it, you can pay attention and learn, what you respond to, what resonates with you, and then apply that, in your practice. But I think the learning comes from seeing and from the doing, and some people have a traditional background in marketing. They went to school for it. That's all
Mhm.
well and good. But I think that it changes, as we said, so much and so quickly that any degree, any information, any education is only time bound to a certain period.
True. You're always it's constant learning, relearning, even,
Yes,
if you
yes.
will. And I'm really interested. I very much know and love the magician going into marketing aspect. But what I'm really curious about is where you kind of made, I guess, the focus, the shift into, ooh, let me work with other marketing leaders and stuff and kind of essentially build them up. Where did that kind of transition come into play? So curious.
For years, I spent a lot of my time consulting and coaching and advising companies and leadership and marketing teams. And so I was very fortunate that in the beginning, I trained small teams on how to do marketing from what I had learned. And then I worked with larger companies and trained some of the largest marketing teams in the world. And that was an awesome experience developing training programs for these companies, for their teams. I learned a lot in the process. But in doing all of that, I, one, got burnt out, and two, realized every marketer has the same problems. Whether you're B2B or B2C or in different industries, marketing is the same set of challenges. And so seeing the patterns across all types of industries and all size companies, I said, let me just get everybody together and teach them and help them with the fundamentals. And so it's really come from that, from the practical application. It's been fascinating to see the problems you think that marketers have and the problems that they really have. And some of it, you're right about it, but some of it, you learn as you go.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of point like put it. I think it's very interesting though that you're calling out, regardless of size, regardless B2B, B2C,
Yes,
it's pretty common.
it
Everything
is.
that you're gonna see. And I'm curious, I feel like you're gonna say it and we're like, duh. But what are the like commonalities, right? What are
Yeah.
the like challenges that just continuously pop up?
There's the ones that are obvious, right? That we don't have a big enough team, we don't have a big enough budget. I think we all think those and feel those. On top of the one that maybe we're afraid to say, which is our goals are either non-existent or they're so ambitious and so ridiculous that there's no way we can possibly achieve them. And that's the
True.
reality most
Yeah.
marketers live in. But on top of that, there's another personal, deeper level, which is confidence. And this was the one that most surprised me was that marketers lack confidence. They lack the ability to say, I don't know, and that's okay. Because the reality is, and
Mhm.
I've been fortunate to advise, CMOs and top leadership, and they have absolutely no clue. The CEO, your CEO has no clue. Your agency has no clue. Your team has nobody knows. And once we admit that and we realize that and accept it, marketing becomes a lot easier because it's not then about having the right answer and doing the right thing. It's about how do we test? How do we experiment? How do we get the data? How do we talk to customers? And
Yeah.
how do we figure it out? And that's real marketing. It's not some tactic I saw on LinkedIn or something our competitors doing. Let me copy. That's not marketing. That's just copying things or trying things. You need to
Sure.
learn and go deep on the fundamentals and know. So I think confidence is the big thing that even in my coaching group for marketing directors, that's a lot of what we deal with is how do I communicate this? How do I think about this? How do I know this is going to work? And sometimes you don't.
Yeah. And I love what you said of like, this is something that I learned, fortunately, very early in life and in my career is if I don't have the answer, that's okay.
Yes.
Admit it. I mean, like, you know what? Great question. Don't
Yes.
know. Let's go find it. Who can I go to talk? Who can I collaborate with? Where can I go find information to learn? Let's talk about it. Instead of trying to pull something out of my ass or,
Always,
or,
right? That's what we try to do. We want to do that. Yeah, we want to
or,
feel like we weren't
yeah,
caught,
of course.
caught out.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. But, I think it's maybe a little bit of a switch of knowing that you're not being called out necessarily because the person asking the question probably
Doesn't
doesn't
know
know
either.
either,
Yeah.
hence why they asked the question. So,
Exactly. Yes.
right, they
Yes.
need answers too. And you're not going to have them all. You may have some, but you won't
Right.
have them all. And that's okay. So I love that you pointed it out. But I think that's something that, even though we know that, right? We might know that. I think we all continue, we're humans. I think we all struggle
Yes.
with that to some extent.
Yes. Well, I'm a huge Zig Ziglar fan. He has a great quote about
Mhm.
self-worth that says, self-worth is like bathing. It's recommended daily. And I think we need that. We need to be reminded that, like you said, it's okay that we don't have the answers. But like you said, the
Yeah.
correct response is how can I find out? Or what can we do about it? Or who can we go and talk to? Or how do we run a test and get something? But part of marketing is knowing that it is ambiguous, it is unknown, it is ever changing. And the more we accept that, which is hard to accept sometimes when leadership has crazy goals and gives you no resources. But the more we can accept that gap, then the easier marketing becomes.
For sure. And you correct me if I'm wrong, you're primarily working with marketing directors and above. I'm sure there's variations and things can change, but you're generally working with leadership to help kind of, consult, resolve some of their issues, right? Things
Yeah.
of that nature. I'm curious, for those that might be more of ICPs, things of that nature. What are some of the misconceptions that people tend to have about a marketing director's role and what they should be, what that role should be?
It is such a great question and such an ambiguous role. When you say marketing director, like they do kind
Yeah.
of everything, and no one knows what they do at the same time. And so it's a very difficult role to fill. And of the marketing directors that I coach, a lot of them are just trying to survive and do everything, and they don't have any direction of what is expected of them or what they should be doing, and they're left to their own devices to kind of figure it out. And sometimes the CEO has a crazy idea, let's do this thing, and you're like, well, we got to do that. Or the agency was running Google ads, so let's keep running Google ads, even if we
Sure.
don't know if it's effective. So you're kind of keeping the status quo, but also trying to figure out what should we do. And I think the biggest gap is strategy. That marketing directors love to be tactical. What things should we be launching, publishing, creating? But if we zoom out a second and say, how do we get customers? How does the business work? And we talked about confidence as one issue. The other challenge marketing directors face is, what's the business outcome? How does the business generate money? And what do the leadership team care about in terms of business metrics? Because we think
Yeah.
about marketing metrics, but all that really matters is the business metrics. How does marketing make money? And I mean, this leads us to a dark road, Taylor, ROI and stuff like that,
Yeah.
attribution. But I
I'm
think
like,
that
I,
marketing
I I
needs
feel
to make
this.
money. And if marketing doesn't
Yeah.
make money and you can't show how marketing makes money, then your job is in jeopardy, your role is in jeopardy, your team is in jeopardy. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses see marketing as an add-on, where I see marketing as the core of the business. Apple is not a company that makes technology. They're a marketing company who happens to sell technology. Nike doesn't make shoes. They're a marketing machine that happens to sell shoes. I can go on and on. Companies that are most successful are marketing companies that happen to sell products.
Very great point. I love that perspective. I mean, maybe we're very biased, but yeah,
Yeah, totally.
I I'm on board 100%. And you're pointing out some of these just common challenges that are faced with the director of marketing role. And it's interesting, previously we were kind of talking about like the challenges are pretty consistent. It doesn't really
Yes.
change. Have you out of curiosity, I mean, aside from maybe the nuances of like AI is new, right?
Yeah.
Or newer. It's not
Yes.
new,
Yes.
right? Newer, I will say. But like, really, if we think, has there been anything that's really changed in regards to a common challenge or trend over the past few years, even?
I don't think so. And I think that even if it has, the fundamentals still remain. And, one of the biggest concepts that I uncovered and share is this idea of marketing inside out. And I think it's the biggest misconception that marketers in general, but specifically marketing directors have. When you learn marketing, or you think about marketing, we have the funnel, which, there's a lot of discussion about the funnel,
Yes.
but you have top of funnel and middle of funnel and bottom of funnel. And we want to fill the funnel. And think about the language I'm using here that we have in marketing. You fill the funnel and you filter leads and you get them to the bottom, and then hopefully you nurture them and all this stuff. And it's completely backwards if you think about it. The fastest, easiest, most cost-effective way to generate new business is to work backwards, is to work inside out. And so I think of the funnel, if you look top down and imagine the layers of an onion, you want to start in the middle and work backwards. And that is, who are our customers? And are we getting referrals? Are we getting testimonials? Who are the people who got on a call with us but didn't buy yet? Can we go back and win back past customers, or close those who are near to closing? Can we go to the people on our email list and get them to book a call with us or have a conversation? Why would we go to totally cold audiences and start there and waste time and money on that whole process? And you should focus top of funnel and that audience, of course, but we leave
Sure.
all this money on the table at the bottom because we're not thinking strategically of, again, business outcomes, business metrics, and speed. I think that, Taylor, is the one thing that has changed over time. Is speed used to be a competitive advantage. Now it's a necessity. If you can't move quickly in your marketing and get results, then I think you're in jeopardy and at risk of being replaced.
Absolutely. And you kind of talking about also flipping the funnel, right? That's been common trend that I've seen over the past few years of people, also people recognizing bofu and like bofu content as more of like a let's go do this first. Actually, it has required a bit more maybe executive buy-in, but ultimately it
Yes.
has. I've seen that switch in that conversation for sure,
Yeah,
taking place more. And to me, it does make sense. As you know, unless you're a
it
net
does.
new, starting from ground bottom company and you don't have anything, obviously you do have to start from, like you don't have anything. But if you have that foundation already, you have both, right?
Yeah.
If you're
Well,
starting net new, that's a whole different subject.
for sure. Yes. Well, I
Yeah.
think you're right. And this goes to one of the biggest misconceptions in marketing, period, which I'll fight sides here. This 3% rule, it's complete BS that only 3% of your market is in the buying mode and buying state. That's nonsense. Think about
Mhm.
smartphones. Everybody has a smartphone. It's not 3% of the market is buying a smartphone. I mean, that's ridiculous. And even if you're talking about just your brand. So I think that idea in itself causes us to think, well, if only 3% are bottom of funnel, of course we should focus on top of funnel and middle of funnel. But it's complete nonsense that we believe it. And I've looked into this, the history of it. I've found no indication that that is anywhat somewhat recent or relevant, and not just some specific one-off stat from 50 years ago. So feel free to challenge me, send me hate mail. I'd love to get it and then debate this. But I think that is a misconception that then leads leadership who is uninformed about marketing, and marketers who are susceptible to the LinkedIn bros writing their broetry on channel about all these things about the 3% rule, which doesn't make any sense. This is why we must work backwards from our marketing. It's the only way. And the more we do the opposite, we're wasting our time, we're wasting a little budget we have, and we end up with no results, empty handed. And leadership says marketing doesn't work. And then the narrative repeats itself.
Yeah. And then it's a vicious cycle. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And I think that's maybe where oftentimes, taking personal aside, obviously there are personal perspectives that you probably do navigate when you're coaching and working with a director, but I would assume oftentimes where they maybe feel stuck or overwhelmed, they're kind of in this mentality, right? Of like this systematic way of approaching marketing. They might have different tactics, campaigns, right? All of this and ideas, great ideas, but they haven't tried to flip maybe,
Yes.
right? Or look
Yeah.
at it with a different perspective. And it sounds so easy, but when you're in it and you're getting pushed, right? With all these,
Right.
we have this goal, and maybe you have to try to get buy-in on like a different tactic, right? It is overwhelming. Where do you usually start with them when you're kind of hearing all of these things?
Oh, I love this. This is so good. Yeah. It is. One of my members of my coaching group just posted today a GIF in Slack. I call it a GIF. You might call it a GIF. I don't care.
To each
But
their own.
they post in Slack of someone in quicksand, drowning, and they said, "Who can
Mm.
relate?" And that's marketers, right? Like we're constantly drowning, just overwhelmed with all this stuff. So you're right. Like you want to do the right thing. You have some new ideas, but you're told to do the other things, and you already have a lot of stuff you're juggling. The best place to
Mhm.
start is what I call the priority planner, and it's a graph that we use in my group, and it's two axes. You got a line that goes to the right, a line that goes to the top, and it's a chart where you map stuff out. The top, from bottom to top, is impact. So what level of impact will this thing have? And from left to
Mhm.
right, it's ease. How easy is this thing to do? And so the top right then is high impact, high ease, and the bottom left is low impact, low ease. And if you map out three things, first, all the stuff you're doing right now, where does it fit at that? And impact is what's the business outcome it's having, or what's the business outcome we expect it to have if it's something new. And an ease is how easy is it for us to do this? Do we have the time? Do we have the people? Do we have the resources? Do we have the knowledge and skills to do it? So you map out first, what are we doing today on this graph, and plot it out? What have we done in the past? Because some things worked in the past and some things didn't. And then what are we
Sure.
thinking about doing that's new, and map that out? You end up with this graph that has a bunch of stuff all over it. Like it might be a LinkedIn ads or run a webinar and stuff like that. Perfect.
Hmm.
Now you can look at it and you can say relatively to each other, LinkedIn ads versus webinar. Which one is easier for us to do? Which one will have a bigger impact for us? And now we can start to move things around and see what ends up in the top right quadrant. That's the quadrant we should focus on. The stuff in the bottom left, we should forget about. The stuff in the bottom right is really easy but low impact. We should fit it in as we have time, but those are often the
Yeah.
safe things we like to do. And the top left is the stuff that's high impact but hard to do. We need to figure out how to make those things easier. Do we need more people? Do we need to do a pilot? Do we need to run a test? Do we need a contractor, et cetera? But then you take this map and you share it with leadership and you say, here's everything. Here's how we see it. Let's have a conversation about which things are in the top right and why we think they're there. And can we commit and can we focus on those? But until you have that conversation with leadership, you're going to be stuck in the same spot.
I love that. I kind of also see that a way as like you might be given a priority list, right, by leadership, but as a marketer, and especially if you're leading, right, you might come in and actually do this and find out that that priority, it might be somewhat to a T, but maybe we could shift priorities a little bit because this is why. And you can
Yes,
tie it to, you can tie it to potential foreseen revenue, time, you name it,
totally.
that is going to speak probably a little bit more clearly to your executive team, right? And so you can reprioritize or create the priorities without being seen as a stickler or anything of that nature because you've
Yes,
built a plan and you looked at it from a granular perspective, like what you're saying of these things, low
exactly.
impact, high impact. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a strategic scale here, up and down, and marketers love to get stuck in the how, the tactical, and that's down.
Yeah.
So if you ask how will we do this, you're moving down, tactical. LinkedIn ads, how will we do that? Will we have a contractor? Will I learn LinkedIn ads? What am I going to do? If you ask why, you move up. Why LinkedIn ads? Well, I think our audience is on LinkedIn. Okay, well, should it be organic or should it be ads? That's a why. Why should it be ads? And so you always want to ask why to move up with leadership. And then once you've agreed, then you can ask how and move down. But first we need
Hmm.
to ask why and move up. And this map, the priority planner, and talking with leadership does two other things. One, it begins the conversation with leadership, which most marketers are not having. You're being told, you're an order taker,
Yeah.
and you're pushing the buttons and you say, what next do you want? Okay, I'll go do that. So one, it begins the conversation. But two, you set the expectation for these initiatives in advance. It's not that, hey, how'd that LinkedIn ad go? Or how's our email campaign? In the beginning, you're going to talk about why are we doing LinkedIn ads? Why are we doing this email campaign? And leadership gets to be, excuse me, involved in that conversation and speak into what are the expectations? What are the results? So that's the time you can push back and say, you know what? I don't think we can expect 10 new deals from just running LinkedIn ads. That's unrealistic. That's the time to say it, not afterwards when you have zero deals to show and say, well, your goals were kind of unrealistic, because then you're in trouble.
You brought up some trauma, but
Yes.
but but no, I think we've all, regardless of where we've been in our career, we've all been as marketers in an instance where maybe something was requested and the goal, you're like, where did that come from? Where did that
Yeah.
number? And oftentimes we're afraid to ask or we're afraid to dig deeper as to like, well, here's what I'm seeing and build that kind of priority map, that plan um, to bring everyone to speed. I remember, I'll shout out, this was a long time ago, but we were going to do an email series. And granted, it was a very niche audience. And they were like, it's going to yield 20 plus leads, qualified, right? Leads. I was like, that's just looking at our email list, right?
Right.
I was like, things we've done in the past, it's yielded, maybe five quality, but we can do a series. But at the where is this coming from? Do we need 20? We can do email, but maybe we need to look, just create that conversation. But
Yes.
oftentimes we're just like, okay,
You pick a
you
number out
know,
of a hat, right? Yeah, like it's going to be
yeah,
20 because why? We said so. That's not how it works.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
so important.
if it were that easy, if it were that magical to do just
Yes.
that, we would. But that's
Yes.
that's not the magic aspect, right? Going
Right.
back, your metaphors, your puns, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
But that's not where it happens. And I think it's interesting, how marketing directors can build influence. I think you really nailed it. It is having that conversation, building that plan to be able to, even if they maybe lack the confidence, they have the information, they have the data, they have everything to present, and at the end of the day, can't really argue with that. It's more of a
Right.
conversation. It's not an argument, it's a
Right.
conversation.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. And even if you feel unconfident or you lack the assertiveness to present this to leadership, like you said, you're not coming in with the answers. You're saying, here's how we see things. What are we missing? And what feedback do you have on this? So notice my language.
Mhm.
I'm not asking for approval. Do you agree with my discussion here? I'm saying, here's what how we see it. What feedback do you have on this? Because you want their input. And when they ask questions or when they say, no, we must do the email campaign. We said, well, okay, great. Why is that? And what do you expect? 20 new leads. Okay.
Mhm.
Based on what we've seen in the past, we got 5. Where's the other 15 going to come from? And to your point, that's how the conversation goes. It's not combative. It's not assertive even. It's just, I want to understand and I want to level set with you. So we're on the same page because we're a team. We're a company. If the company succeeds, we all succeed. So let's have that conversation again now versus later when you're trying to scramble and say, well, let me show all the vanity metrics because that's all I have to show. And I hope they're good enough. And
Yeah,
maybe I can impress them with some
yeah.
graphs. That's where we end up as marketing directors versus in the beginning saying, what's the outcome? What's realistic? And let's talk about what we need to do to get there. And maybe that means we cut some to other things that are not working. And that's a huge thing is so many marketing directors are wasting time and money and effort and budget on stuff that doesn't work. And they keep doing it because they're afraid that leadership might say something if we turned off, that campaign or that channel.
Yeah, you hit on something. I was actually talking to another individual on the mic a bit ago, and it was about kind of almost the law of subtraction. We're always like looking to
Yes.
add more. And it's like, no, actually, in regards to maybe what we're doing in marketing, maybe we can actually remove to be more effective, or maybe it's a process, right? Like there's probably adding more doesn't necessarily mean a gain, so kind of
It's
looking at
true.
it from that perspective, is really interesting.
Yeah, I often say better, not more. How do you do better of something, not more of something else? I learned it early on in my career as the law of raspberry jam, that the more you spread it, the thinner it gets. And that's your time, your budget, your team. The more stuff you do, the worse you'll do at all of it. And you don't need to do more. As marketers, we're sold this lie again from all the influencers out there that, the best companies are doing everything. Yeah, I've worked with some of the best companies, the huge, big companies. They have massive teams, like 80-person marketing team. You can't imagine. They could do a ton of stuff, but we can't. If you're a 1 or 2 person team or 4 or 5 or 10, you can't do everything. And you don't need to do everything. That's the good news is you can focus on a few things and do them exceptionally well. And the other part of that is the
Absolutely.
better, not more. Optimization is a lost art of marketing. Most marketers don't optimize. We plan, we do, we report, and then we move on and we repeat. We plan, do, launch. No one is optimizing. No one is analyzing. And if you just improve a little bit, you can have huge performance gains from very little effort in very short time just by optimizing the stuff that's already working or that isn't working even.
Yeah.
So optimization is massive in marketing. And again, it's I think something that most marketers overlook because we're so busy trying to do more to
Hmm.
fulfill the demands of leadership, to have numbers to show our busyness and activity. And this goes back to the old adage of, work smarter, not harder. It's do a
Hmm.
few things, do them really well, optimize the hell out of them, and get results and ignore everything else and develop the confidence to speak up to leadership to say, we're not going to do that because look at these results we're getting. Don't you want more of that?
Yeah. And hearing this, I'm kind of curious because it can kind of fit across the board, but how do you help marketing directors kind of see or find the balance of like a short-term performance pressures versus with like a long-term brand building? There, because there's both. There's a
Yeah.
short and a long-term game, and like the balance I feel like sometimes is quite a lost art where it's
Yes.
forgotten perhaps, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Well, I'll tell you, I learned this from my wife. My wife is the best relationship builder I know. She has amazing relationships and friendships and an incredible empathy for people. And I've seen it that what she does is she shows up for people in the short term again and again and again and again. And after 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, you have a friend who is, incredibly loyal and will bend over backwards for you, and you have a deep, meaningful relationship with them. And that I think is the essence of marketing. It's deliver results quickly over the short term and do that consistently over the long term. That's, I think, how you balance both. And I'm huge on, we have this triangle in the group. You've probably heard of this triangle before. The triangle at the top has good. At the bottom corners, you have fast and cheap. So it's good, fast, and cheap. And you get to pick two of them. It can be good and cheap, but it's going to take forever. Or it can be fast and cheap, but it's not going to be good. And the dilemma is, how do you solve this, right? How do you do all three? Because leadership draws a big circle and they say, we want all three. We want it good, we want it fast, we want it
Yep.
cheap. And so in our
Yeah.
group, what we do is we subdivide the triangle into three layers. The bottom layer is fast and cheap. How can we validate this fast and cheap? When you validate something, we're just trying to figure out, could it work for us? Doesn't matter if it's good, it matters, could it work for us? So if it's LinkedIn ads, let's spend $500 in 2 weeks, run some ads and get some data and see, is our audience even there? Are they paying attention? So first you validate it, if it could work. Then we move to the middle layer, which is optimize. Once we validated that, yeah, they're there and they're responding, let's optimize it. Let's spend some more time on the ad creative, on the copy, on the landing page, and make it a little bit better. Then once we see that working, then we move to the top triangle piece, which is scale, which is let's put more people and money and time into it and put it in more channels and more places because we know it works now. That's, I think, the short term that builds up to the long term of if you want scale and leadership wants scale, we have to first take a bunch of ideas from the priority planner we talked about, validate them,
Yeah.
take the ones that have been validated and proven, optimize them. We talked about optimization, then we can scale. And leadership loves this model because it works and also it makes sense to them. Again, they're not marketers. They don't know. They're like, push the buttons and get leads. Somehow magic happens, right? It's like, no, we
Hit
need
by
to
numbers.
do a bunch of stuff and validate it. Then we can improve it. Then we can scale it. So having the stages helps a lot to help manage expectations and let you do fewer things so you can actually get them done.
Yeah. You know, it's pretty, it seems so simple, right?
Right.
But it is a lot of work. And I think it
A
just
ton.
takes maybe a little bit of a mindset shift and just getting out of your comfort zone too, because we tend to be in those cycles, right? So I'm sure that's an aspect of your coaching
Yeah.
and your advice that you give. But also on the other side of buy-in and the tactical aspects and everything, there's a whole other aspect of being a marketing director. You could be at larger teams or you have like a pretty tight-knit group, but at the end of the day, you're running the ship and that ship likely has some folks on it, whether they be fractional, full-time,
Yeah.
whatever, right?
You name
But
it.
I'm very curious because there's a complete different like personal aspect of where you really have to drive that perspective too. What's your
Yeah.
advice for, I guess, marketing directors really like building out, reconstructing their
Mm.
teams, if you will?
I never understood teams. I always thought that culture was a buzzword, and boy, was I wrong. Culture is everything, and one bad apple can spoil the bunch. And so, how you build your team is just as important as the team that you build. And I think we all
Hmm.
want to be the strategic person who's calling the shots and not doing the work, not pushing the buttons. Um, but you have to be careful because sometimes you have to be in the weeds. And we all want to hire rock stars, but a lot of people can be rock stars. And I believe marketing is 80% process, 20% creative. Some people disagree and they're fine too, but marketing really is more science than art. And we see this time and time again, which means when I hire people for a marketing team, I'm focused on the soft skills. Who are they as a person? Can we relate to them? Can we connect with them? Are they curious? Can they learn?
Hmm.
Those are the things that are important. Are they
For
passionate about
sure.
the industry, for example? Not so much their chops, because as we said before, marketing changes and it's going to keep changing. And hiring someone who's the best SEO person in the world is irrelevant when AI comes along and wipes out, how SEO used to work, or when Google changes, or when my prediction next year there's a new competitor to Google and changes the search game forever. So I think that
We
hiring
keep
for hard
learning.
skills,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to talk about that. I think that hiring for hard skills is a tough thing. I think that you hire people for people, and when you build a uh, group of friends, this is how I see it. Of course, it's work. You don't have to be best friends, but people you want to hang out with, people who you can have a 2 hour debate with about the landing page and what the button should say. Those are the people I want on the team who are passionate, who have an opinion, who are curious, and who will go with the data and test things. Those typically end up being, from my experience, the best marketing team members who drive the best results as a team versus the one rock star solo player who's gonna, it's my way or the highway or I'm out of here.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree on that. But,
We've all worked with them.
sometimes, yeah, but I think it's interesting sometimes as a director, there's this pressure of like, got to get someone in now, got to do it now, and we need
Yeah.
these skills. And that might be accurate to some extent,
Hmm.
but why the now? Do you think it kind of goes back to, well, let me look at my prioritization? Like, why? Going back to that
Yes.
why, right? Because I feel like oftentimes people are looking for, and there's nothing wrong with hard skills, we all have them. Uh, but I feel like people do gloss over potential or like learnings, and it usually comes from the top down, unfortunately, and that's okay. But how do you have you had many situations where you kind of do talk through this with the marketing director of maybe, there is a little bit where you can go back and have a bit of a discussion with hiring managers, and your executive team, to say like, this is what we need actually. Here's the
Right.
priority, and here's what we should be looking for. Here's why.
Yes.
Here's what I think.
Yeah. I've seen on many sides of this, but one example comes to mind is we were hiring this guy, and he was a great fit, great personality, had the skills, had the chops, but had no college degree. And to HR, that was a red flag. You can't hire someone who doesn't have a college degree. And I disagreed. And so I told my
Mhm.
client, you have to hire this guy. He is the guy. And fortunately, they listened. Most cases they don't listen, but they listen. And he ended up being an amazing team player and moved around between many teams because he was just so skilled and such a good person to work with. On the flip
Mhm.
side, I've seen companies that hire an executive or leadership member or even senior marketer who have on paper all the skills, all the chops, all the experience, and then they get in their role and they have no clue. They don't know what they're doing. And in one situation, it literally tanked the company because you can't have marketing not running for 6 months when you realize, uh-oh, this person didn't know what they're doing and we're screwed. So I think that
Mhm.
really comes down to fighting for who you want on your team and being clear about who you want on your team. And I think also involving your team in the process, that this isn't a
Mhm.
decision that's just your decision to make. That when you add someone to the team, just as you would invite someone to your friend group, it's going to affect everybody, right? The whole dynamic shifts and changes. And so to involve them in the process, maybe not in the interviews necessarily, we don't overwhelm everybody, but to include them with what are we looking for? What makes a good candidate? And maybe have some conversations or get to know them or understand how your team works and what would be disruptive to them versus what would be conducive to them. But hiring people is a very tricky, slippery slope. It's very challenging. I think we narrow our choices because of the hard skills that we need and because of the
Yeah.
requirements that HR requires and things like that. And we need not. We need to find the right person for the role. And when you find them, and it's amazing and magic happens. Um, but I think to your comments about speed, take as long as you need, but no longer, to find the right person. But certainly don't rush it because rushing it can set you back months, if not years.
Yeah, we always love the line of like, when do you need this person to start? Yesterday.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
like,
It's like, okay, I wish.
yeah,
If only it was
absolutely. It's like,
possible.
I mean, I feel that, but there's some reasonings as to why you're saying that. What is that? Let's talk about that a
Yeah, and
little
most
bit.
marketing teams don't have the process in place for onboarding either. That we haven't documented what would that person even be doing. Let's start there and let's get the data, let's get the documentation. You don't need like everything written out, but you need something to give them to say, here's what we do, here's how we work, here's what we've done. And I call this a book of
Mhm.
knowledge, which is a document that records the campaigns we've run, the results we've gotten, the insights we've learned, what's worked, what hasn't. How does our team operate? When do we meet? How do we report things, et cetera? What templates do we have access
Yeah,
to? Document it all for your team. Your team now will love it and use it and benefit. And then when you hire someone new, you can say, here's everything.
I love that. And there's another aspect, you have your team now. Eh, I'm curious, how can marketing leaders, better coach their teams without becoming the stereotypical bottleneck, too? There's always that complex line, right? Especially
Yes.
when you have a small team. I feel like it can be blurred very quickly.
Totally. Yeah, you can easily suffocate them if you're not careful. And many marketing directors have, one-on-ones with their team every week. I think that's too much. You need to give people room to breathe, and you should check in with them on Slack and stuff like that, throughout the week. But to have a one-on-one, it's 2 weeks. I think is a good time frame. Don't do it every week. It can be too much to micromanage people. But the second thing is you have to train your team to know how to think. The biggest problem marketing directors have with their team is they feel like they have to prescribe every step to their team. go do this, and they get it back and it's not good enough or it's done incorrectly, and it's like, fix this. And their team can't think critically for themselves. And part of this is the marketing director's fault. You have to train people on how to think. So you have to say to them, here's the challenge or here's the objective we have to accomplish. How do you think we should approach this? Come up with two different ideas we could pursue, and then tell me what they
Mhm.
are and which one you think, we should pursue. And let them do the work. Don't necessarily prescribe everything to them. And I call this outsourcing for outcomes, not delegating tasks,
Mhm.
because we have to say, this is the goal we want. This is the objective. This is the outcome. It's up to you to figure out how we get that. If we need to run this campaign through email, I'm not going to tell you which emails to send and what cadence and what to say. Let me have you present to me first what you think is good, because you have good ideas and I have good ideas too. But
Yeah.
how about I give you the space to think about it and to figure it out versus me telling you what we've always done or what I think we should do? And then your team gets to think independently. They appreciate that. For some of them, it can be intimidating, but then you can give them feedback. And so now you're critiquing and giving feedback constructively versus dictating and delegating and being in the weeds with everything. And that's how you build an independent team that you trust, who trusts you, and can actually get stuff done.
Yeah. Another thing I might add is that you've also given them the time. You're not expecting an answer on spot,
Yes, that
which
is a good point.
uh, which
Yes,
that can happen. And I'm like, I love to say that I'm creative or can think on the fly, right? But at the end of the day, is that the best, you know, thing? It's probably
right.
best if you give me a moment and I go, take a walk,
Yes,
disconnect for a little bit, come back and like really put my head down. And I'm like, okay, here's some thoughts, right? I think that's probably another aspect to it too, is not expecting the answer immediately upon,
immediately. Yes.
yeah,
I love
upon
that, Taylor. That's
giving.
that famous quote of, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend four sharpening the axe. I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
We need to think about what are we doing here, not just, vomit out stuff in marketing. And that's what we tend to do is because of the timelines are so short, as you said, we're just like, let's pump it out, let's get it out, let's hit publish, let's go, versus let's stop and think. And when you do that, less is more. I'd rather send one really well written email that's to the point and short, you're going to resonate, versus spamming people with 10 personalized garbage emails that mean and say nothing.
Mm, yeah. And you do often talk about simplifying marketing. Obviously, we've talked about it here. You talk about it often on your LinkedIn postings as
Yeah.
well. How do you help people kind of really just cut through the noise or, you know, stop from overcomplicating things?
Hmm.
We've talked about this quite a bit, but as a leader, now working with your team and also trying to kind of coach your team in this
Yeah.
mindset and aspect, uh, you know, what does that look like?
There's so much to unpack here. I love
Oh,
this
I'm
part
sure.
because we're all in our heads. And I'll tell everybody listening, I'm a chronic overthinker. I'm a perfectionist at heart, and I overthink everything. I think we all do. You have to be in marketing, and we have to stop that. And I think that the best way to do this is to think, if I was the consumer, if I was receiving this, or there was, or reading this, or whatever, how would I feel? And the buyer's journey, everyone gets wrong. The buyer's journey has a series of steps. If you imagine a line from left to right, that's how we think about it. Completely wrong. There's actually a bell curve. And if you splice that bell curve in two, the uphill is the emotion, the downhill is the logic. People act based on emotion, they justify with logic. We're all
Hmm.
emotional and irrational. Every decision you make is based on emotion, not logic, which is good news and bad news. It's bad news because you're emotional and irrational, just like me. It's good news because all we have to do in marketing is communicate on an emotional level. And especially B2B is terrible at this. We talk about our features and our benefits and the product, and nobody cares. They care about themselves, they care about the emotion. And so, if we think about it from this lens, we can simplify all of marketing down to how do we connect with the customer, with the client, and how do we be emotional, make them feel something. And so then at the email we send, look at it, pull up an email you just sent to someone from marketing and read it. I guarantee it has zero emotion in it. Look at that landing page you've got. What emotion is there? Look at your social posts. That's the essence of simplifying marketing is we spend all this time and energy trying to make it perfect in the design, the appearance, the words, but it's all logical. And if we just focus on the emotion, one, it's a lot easier, and two, it's a lot faster, but it'll actually have an impact. People will say, I felt something.
There's so many things I could add to that, or like we could talk probably deeper into. But one thing I love that you said is like, this is unfortunately stereotypical of B2B, but I
Yeah.
do have to shout out, I have seen a lot of B2Bs coming in with that perspective now of, hey, my jargon, my buzzwords, right? It's not necessarily about what I can give you, but it's like, it's going back to why. What are their pain points? Like, what are they really
Yes.
feeling? Like, let's meet them where they're at. Yes, we can solve that, but like, what is that? Let's resonate with that, because
Yes.
how would you feel like in that essence, and kind of looking at that. And I think that's an amazing shift, because also, regardless, everyone has the perception of, not everyone, it's changing, fingers crossed that it continues, but B2B is boring, or my
Yeah.
industry is boring, and it's like, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
And you're very right with that just emotion, you could insert that in so many aspects, I feel like, of marketing,
Everything.
your process,
Everything.
the
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I love FedEx, their logo or slogan. It used to be, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. The modern marketer would say, make it short, you know, overnight or it's free, but guaranteed overnight. That doesn't have emotion. When it absolutely positively has to be there overnight, that's emotion just in a slogan.
Hmm.
And if they can do that, you can do it. And, I'm in Orlando, we have Disney here. You go to Disney, I love going to Disney for a weird reason. I look for the trash can because all the trash cans are hidden. They're like in plain sight,
They
but they're hidden
are. They
because they're
are, I
covered
feel
up by
that.
like branches or they're built into the wall and it looks so cool. But their attention to details, they know how to tell a story and make you feel something. And they know that if they put a trash can in the middle of this elaborate, park, it stands out like a sore thumb. And so they're telling a story, they're making you feel involved, engaged, immersed in this world. And to put that there
Absolutely.
ruins it. And the same way marketers ruin their marketing by talking about themselves, by having jargon and buzzwords, and by being bland and boring instead of being emotional and making people feel something. So I go back to Apple and Nike as my example. Apple doesn't tell you about the features and the specs. You want Apple. They create demand that way. Nike doesn't tell you about the shoes and how they're made. If they did, you wouldn't buy them. They show someone you like you wearing the shoes, doing a slam dunk, and you said, I got to have a pair of those. Coke doesn't talk about the taste or the flavor. They show people drinking who are happy. This is emotion. This is marketing. It's all about emotion. When you do that, it becomes a lot simpler and a lot easier.
Absolutely. It kind of takes me back to like Mad Men days, if you will, too.
Yes,
Right?
yes, it's
But
so
it
true.
is kind of the foundation. Like,
It
great
is.
show. Also,
It's
it's a
never
great
changed.
rerun show.
Yes. I love
I
it.
do love it. But I know I got some rapid fire
Sure.
questions for
Yeah,
you,
let's do it.
I guess. If you're ready, shift
I'm
gears
ready.
here. All right. Bear with me. What's a or maybe one marketing hill you will die
Attribution is pointless.
on? Okay, I please elaborate. I want to know a little more.
Attribution is a scam we've been sold. Can you tell me why you've bought anything in your life? Whatever you tell me is wrong. You don't have a proper memory to remember why or how you bought it or found it. And whatever reason you give me today is different from the actual reason you had when you bought it. On top of that, we don't have the technology or means to accurately measure attribution. And even if we did, no one has the time or care to actually look at it and make sense of it and then apply it and adjust things moving forward. There's so many levels and layers of problems with attribution, on top of being not only an extremely expensive problem to even try to solve, that we can't solve it.
Mhm.
And if we did solve it, we wouldn't even use it. I think attribution is a complete waste of time and it's pointless. The best marketing is to do good marketing. The golden rule of marketing is to do marketing as if you were the customer. If you do that, you win. You don't need attribution. Do something, test it, see if it works. If it works, do more of it until it doesn't work. Then do something different. And if it didn't work, try something else. That's all you need. You don't need attribution.
It's pretty complex to measure. I will I will say that.
It's
So
impossible.
you definitely hit on that one. So, what's a marketing trend or something happening right now that you just think is like way overhyped?
AI, certainly. AI, as you said, is not new. I'm from a programming background of 20 years. We did AI a long time ago. I was in game design and development. I was in military simulation. We had AI back then. It wasn't the AI of today, of course, but AI is not new. People think it's new. AI is also overhyped. It's pattern matching. It can do some cool things. AI has some cool use cases, don't get
Sure.
me wrong, but it's about to hit a plateau and people will be shocked when they realize AI can't do all the amazing things you've been told it can do. and a lot of marketers are worried for their job. I think AI is a massively overhyped.
Yes. It can help me. It can help streamline some things,
It
but
does help.
I
It
do
does help.
I feel you on that. I feel like there's kind of a plateau at a
Yeah.
certain point. It's like, okay, you've learned what you can do with it, and until something new or different comes along,
Yes.
we're kind of at where we are. Like you have to get your grasp on it, right?
Yeah.
And for some people, they're at different stages of that, maybe. But then when you reach that stage, that point where you're like, what's next? I've reached where all I can do. I can
Right.
try and do different things, but you know, I'm there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel
I
that.
think there's a
Yeah.
lot people don't realize about AI that will become more evident soon, that it doesn't have the power we thought it did. Yeah.
It has to evolve like everything else. And
We'll
it,
see if
it
it can.
will.
Yeah, we'll see
Yeah,
if it can.
hopefully. Okay. I guess a couple more for you. What's something about your job day to day, that would just surprise the heck out of people?
If I dare say it, I think it's the problems marketers are facing are not the problems you think. As I alluded to before, confidence is one of the big ones. And the other thing that I've always known but been reminded is nobody knows what they're doing. I mean, that includes myself. Nobody has any clue what they're doing. And the more you realize that and accept that, the easier life becomes and the easier your work becomes. That your
Mm.
boss, your CEO, your CMO, whomever, they have no clue. One time I was walking, my wife went to a conference in a city, and so I went with her because I had a client there, CMO of a $250 million company. I was advising him. We're walking around at night, my wife and him and his wife, and he's asking me about my background, and I explain where I came from, how I got into marketing, and you can see visibly his face that he realizes, wait a second, you're not from marketing, you don't have a background in marketing, and it was like this moment where it was like, oh my goodness, he doesn't have this, and I think a lot of people just have no idea, have no clue. And that was me, right? I didn't come from marketing. I've learned all this as I
Mhm.
went. And I think that the more you realize that people don't know anything and don't have any justification for what they believe and why they believe it or their skills, that's freeing in a lot of ways.
Mm. Yeah, I can agree with that. And you essentially kind of having your own, setting your own, business consultation essentially up with folks. I'm curious of kind of what your day to day looks like. Is it you got a 4-day work week? Is it whenever you want? What does that look like? I'm so curious.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people end up, leaving their job, starting their own business, and they end up with a worse boss. I'm that worst boss for myself. I'm a workaholic,
We're
so
all our own worst
yeah,
in it.
we're all
Yeah.
worse. I'm a night owl, and so I'm up late, and I'm a workaholic. I love what I do. So I have a lot of calls with my clients. I give them a lot of help, and I enjoy the conversations. We do a conference, a small conference of 20 people every year. It's in October, and so that's awesome. We get together, hang out, have some fun. Play with some Lego and do some marketing stuff. But yeah, day to day, it's creating content. We're building tools in our platform to help marketers. It's answering questions. We have a Slack community, so it's a lot of content creation, which I love, and answering questions. And if you've ever seen me draw on my iPad, I doodle and draw and have a lot of frameworks and stuff. So it's fun. Brainstorming, thinking, creating content. It never ends.
Yeah. And, on that front, you're creating content. I follow you. I see a lot of your great content out there, engage with it. Where can listeners essentially connect with you, go to find you, some of the tactics you're talking about? Where can they connect and find you?
Great question. Yes, LinkedIn is the place. I post about twice a day on LinkedIn, if not more. So definitely LinkedIn, Tim Parkin. That's parking without the G. So Tim, Parkin. LinkedIn's the best place. I just launched a YouTube. We're going to be sharing a lot of really cool stuff on YouTube. And we have a free monthly event called the Marketing Leader Roundtable, which you can find on my LinkedIn, where every month we get together about 100 marketing directors on Zoom. And I just share and teach some of the strategies and tactics and frameworks from inside my coaching group, give it away for free. You can take it, steal it, apply it, and get some cool results. It's a fun time.
That's awesome. Also, that it's free.
Yeah,
Yes, I love that. Who wouldn't? You
totally.
probably should go to that, everyone.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's cool. We've had people come back, now 8 or 9 months in a row. We see the same people. It's been running for almost 2 years now. So it's been a lot of fun to get to build a community and hang out and teach some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's one aspect that you just said of which is like it being a community in a sense, like of support, a network for
Yes.
people. But I think something can also be said of like what you said initially, where like things are kind of cyclical. Like the common challenges, everything, it
Yes,
remains.
it
And
does.
so hence why, people also are sticking around.
Yes. Yes, the
So
challenges are
yeah.
always there and you need support. And I think the biggest thing about marketing is so many people are doing it alone, and you don't have someone to talk to about marketing. You are the only marketer, you have no support internally. You feel like, am I doing the right things? Community is essential. And it doesn't have to be my community, but find a community, find other people who do marketing and connect with them and talk with them. And that's why I
Yeah.
think the roundtable is such a great event. Free, hang out, learn some perspective, talk to some people about marketing, and just feel like you're not alone in this because you're not. And it can feel isolating if you're not careful.
Oh yeah, took the words from my mouth. I was like, isolating. Yeah,
Yes,
we've all been
yes,
there.
totally.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, I know we're short on time here. I even took a little bit more time than I should have,
Awesome.
but it's been great talking to you. Love having you on the mic. Yeah. So everyone, go connect, follow Tim. Got great advice, and he's solid on LinkedIn. So I can justify on that one.
Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to connecting with everybody on LinkedIn. My door's open. Would love to chat and help you guys however I can and to see you on the roundtable.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim.